Hello, welcome to the job placement portion of the RDC module training. At this point, you should have already seen the general overview presentation. If you have not, please view that first before viewing this module. Now we're going to look at the job placement services portion of the RDC. We've already logged in, and so now we will go to the Client tab. We're going to use a client that's already been entered. All right, we've got Steve Rogers here. We're going to go to the services portion. Now, we're going to add job placement services. RSS job placement is what we'll be looking at. Now, some of you also have RSS, RCA job placement programs. The modules look the same type of fields, but they are separate, distinct modules where you'll put programs that you're serving, counting, and funding under the different modules, under the different programs in those two different modules. Today we're going to look at RSS job placement and use that. Okay. So we've got job placement for this client now as a service. We clicked on the little yellow light bulb next to the service name. It brought us to this screen, the job placement, RSS job placement screen for this client. We're going to indicate the case manager. Use this one. Okay, and now we'll go to service start date. The eligibility, the day they arrived in the U.S., in this case for the refugee, was 10/16/2013. Let's have a start date of, let's say, 10/25/2013. You can enter it in, just type it in straight away, or you could use the calendar feature. And then to save that, we hit create. Now notice before we hit create, maximum service date 10/16/2018. That's the 5-year maximum for RSS services. So now we're in the job placement screens. We've got two major tabs here. There's the assessment and planning. That's where you record the employment service plan, family self-sufficiency plan information and dates, as well as some other information about the client, including whether or not they have an employment authorization document. And you have some optional data that you can use the RDC to note, for example, current employer, previous employer, different skills. Those are optional, but as throughout the system, if it's a required item, it will have a red asterisk next to it. So here in assessment planning, all right, employment plan, employment service plan, ESP, the date. It's the same day that you do the beginning. That's the day that services start for the job placement client, is the day they do the intake, and part of the intake for employment services is the employment service plan and the self-sufficiency plan. So 10/25/2013, let's use the calendar feature this time. Moving back to 2013 and moving to April. I'm moving from April, excuse me, to October. Very good. Family self-sufficiency plan, same thing, calendar. Change the year back to 2013, change the month up to October. RCA, Refugee Cash Assistance. This is asking if at the point you're doing this intake and needs assessment, if the client was RCA. Yes or no. In this case, we'll say no. Client agrees to cooperate with the employment service plan. Drop-down menu, indicate yes. Copy of the employment service plan on file. If that's true, drop-down menu, yes. Now, over at the EAD, let's see what this question mark shows us. It's asking, does the client possess a valid employment authorization document? Close that. We'll say that at the time of intake, the client did. If the client did not have an employment authorization document at that time, these next few fields pertain to the assistance that you provided to the client in order to get an employment authorization document. So you could have EAD assistance provided. It would be yes or no. The date the assistance was provided, and that's going to refer to that initial application you helped them submit. And then date the client actually obtained the employment authorization document. In this next section, this is optional, and it's for your use. This is asking if during intake, if the client was employed, and if so, who is the current employer and job title. It also has information about previous employment, job title. This is useful information for your job developers, caseworkers who are need to know about the client's skills and background and employment experience, preferred employment, hours per week desired, preferred hourly wage, and also the minimum hourly wage according to the Family Self-Sufficiency Plan. So we'll say the client was not employed at that time. And this information is fairly self-explanatory. Note, for previous employer as a drop-down menu and current employer. For right now in the system, these are drop-down menus from ones that from information that was entered under the admin screens that may change in the future. So to save, we hit create. If you at some point are going to update the employment plan, you can add a new employment plan. Things change, conditions change for the client. Perhaps they, have some different interests as far as hours per week desired, preferred hourly wage. Some items on the employment service plan that are not even recorded here. It's a separate document that you would have within your agency that the client signs and indicates their consent to participate in the services as outlined in that service plan, including training or going to orientation classes, etc. When you make changes to that plan that are significant and the client is signing and dating those changes, you can add a new employment plan, and it'll put a new date into the RDC. Now, it's also referred services. You can add referred services. Let's look at that. Services, the options could be referring the person for vocational training under one of the programs that we have, on-the-job training, professional recertification, perhaps it's for civics instruction or social adjustment, different options, case management, ESL. Let's see, we'll put RSS English as a second language. And referral date. Why don't we put and you can also add comments and follow-up date to indicate that you know that they were actually enrolled. Okay. You can make changes, corrections, etc. All right. Now, after hitting update, that has saved our information. We've logged on. Let's look at the referral and placement log. This is where you enter information about the client in the jobs that they refer to and jobs that were hired into and the follow-up conducted thereof. So again, after we've hit on the referral placement tab, we would go to the case manager drop-down, select your case manager, hit create. Okay. So let's look at add a new referral or placement under job placements. Let's say they got referred for a job and referred to a job with an employer that you already have listed in your drop-down menu for your agency. We'll say referred to an employer. Let's choose one. How about cutting edge playscapes and position that they were referred to for a job interview for this position. Let's choose one that's already in the system. Assembly. Sounds like a factory or manufacturer. You can also add new job positions, new types of jobs. You can do that on your own by using this feature, and we'll practice that in a moment. But for right now, we'll choose one that's from a pre-existing drop-down menu that you have created at your agency using the admin feature. So is it a permanent job? We'll say yes. Hiring information. Let's say they went on the interview, they went through the orientation 11/15/2013, and they were actually hired with a start date of 11/20. Hours per week, 40. Wage, $10.50 an hour. Health benefits offered. In this program, health benefits offered, again, means that the employer is offering a position that offers health benefits as part of the package within 6 months. The client is not required to take the health benefits or to participate in them, but at least we're noting whether or not that is offered as part of the job. Benefits offered. We'll say yes. Okay. So now to save that, we hit create. So that's a placement. Well, we need to track to see if they're still employed later on. Review employment. Let's see what it says. It says if client is employed on the 30th, 60th, or 90th day, that's the 30th, 60th, 90th day following the job start date, enter the date in this field, meaning enter the date that you have verified that the client is still working. So if the client is not employed at the time of 30th, 60th, or 90th day review, leave this field empty. All right. So they got their job 11/20. We're able to check in with them a month later. And in December, around December 20th, they are working. That's the date we verified it. And we update it. Now, let's go back to assessment planning. And let's go back to the client. Steve Rogers. Still there. We've got all his information. Employment authorization document. Current employer. Referred services. Date of EOD attained. Referral placement. Now, let's say that this client's job at Cutting Edge Playscapes came to an end. Here we are, job end day. Let's say that unfortunately the job came to an end right not too long after we had actually verified their employment. Job end day, 12:30. Job end reason, laid off. Now, if you want, you can add a comment. So you click on this section here and add your comment. Company downsized. Add comment. Later on, if you want to return to comments to read what's there, you click on the same button. It will act as if it's going to allow you to add a comment. You'll be able to read the comments that are already there and just cancel. By canceling, it doesn't erase what was already written there. So if you open it back up, it's still there. So, and don't forget to save your information before you leave the page. Okay. Let's say the client gets a new job, and this time it's in a job for which we have not already entered into the system. So in order to do that, add new job referral placement. That's where we'll go. But first, we need to put this new employer that we haven't had before, we need to add them under the admin feature back here at the top. Admin, go over to employer. Okay. Add new employer, and here's where you put the information. Moon Tower Catering. And we hit save. You can put a lot more information about that employer. Obviously, contact information, very important, contact name, etc. But for the purposes of today, we'll just stick to the name of the employer. Now let's go back to client, back to the client. Takes us back to Steve Rogers, the client we were working with. And we're going to add a new referral and placement. Okay. New referral date. Refer to employer. So now you see that Moon Tower Catering appears on your drop-down list. Position, kitchen assistant. Or actually, you know what? Let's add a new position. Let's put driver. Or delivery driver. And save. Are you sure? Yes. Delivery driver. Permanent. Yes. That's the referral date. Let's say they got hired. Hours per week. Wages. $9.50. Health benefits offered. Yes. Okay, and create. looking at this client, we see that the job placement screen shows their most recent job placement. If we want to look at their first placement, click on the button, and it takes us earlier into their history, the assembly position at Cutting Edge Playscapes. If we want to go back to the most recent, delivery driver, Moon Tower Catering. Now, let's go up here to client services, back to client services. Okay. For this client, Steve Rogers, shows intake page 1, intake page 2, services. There's another tab called support services. Now, for the support services, we can add new support service. Click on that. Grants and services, RSS job placement. Type of assistance, childcare, interpretation, translation, transportation. Let's say transportation. Date. Let's say we were helping them in going to the job interviews. So maybe back in January. All right. You can put notes to be more specific. And here's where we save it. There we go. So it shows the type of support service that was provided and what program and grant it was related to, the date it was provided. So there we have a very general view of job placement services as you record them in the RDC. If you ever have any questions regarding the program or the use of the RDC for that program, please contact OIRA and we'll be glad to assist you.